All right, welcome to part two. Up at the easel here, and I went a little bit crazy. I actually prepped some smaller panels last night, and when I went to sand them today, evidently the gesso was not all the way dry because it just kind of made a soft mess. So evidently need a little more time to dry. So I scurried around my studio, found this great big 24-inch tall by 36-inch wide. The scene I want to do is just a band of trees. I really wanted to do, somebody was asking about doing really warm colors using underpaintings and stuff. So it's going to be kind of a more glowy feel, but kept with kind of a tonalist ideas. And so it's a band of trees. I took this the other morning. I went ahead and washed out the sky to, and I'll just make up the sky. So I got a lot of different photos. I should probably have a couple more references here. But this is just a little lake park near here. And anyways, I'm gonna be doing a wipe away method to kind of get started. I'm gonna put on a bunch of Indian yellow, and then I'm gonna put on my transparent earth red with a little bit of the ultramarine blue mixed in for the darks in different areas. And then I'm going to build up using kind of a hopefully harmonized greens and oranges, which will be kind of interesting. All right, my colors on the palette are, it's quite a different palette for me. I've got a titanium white, Indian yellow. This is a gold ochre, so that means that it's a semi-transparent ochre. The red is naphthol scarlet. So it's not quite as warm as a cad red light, but it's definitely not a cadmium red medium either. So it's kind of in between. And if I remember correctly, the naphthol colors are a semi-transparent color. So a little more opaque than a lot of the colors, but definitely we'll be able to wipe away and get some of the transparency with that. I went ahead and grabbed an alizarin permanent, which I bet you it has been years and years since I've used an alizarin permanent. It's a very cool red, especially compared to the quinacridone red, which is what I put in its place. But I think it might work nicely for some of the kind of subdued fall colors that I want to get into the trees. And also, I just want to experiment with different colors. I've got ultramarine blue. And then over here, I've got a sap green, which is, if you're going to lay out a green for doing landscape painting, I rarely use greens, but it's a nice green. It's a little more earthy. And let me double check as well. I also think it's a semi-transparent. Oh, doesn't even tell me on the tube. For some reason, I think sap green is oftentimes a semi-transparent color.
I think it's transparent.
It is just a transparent.
Yeah, the Gamblin one is transparent.
Yeah, and I'm using Gamblin's 1980 version of it, so it'll probably be even more transparent because the 1980 brands, they're the cheap one, and they often have more oil in them and more of a filler, less pigment. So it'll probably be extra transparent. We'll see. I might be wrestling with that color a little bit. I contemplated putting out a Payne's gray, and I still reserve the right to come back to a Payne's gray. And then I've got my oxide red or burnt, the transparent earth red here. The transparent earth red is a fast matte color. It's going to be going in, and I'll be doing a lot of my drawing and design with the transparent earth red and a combination of the ultramarine blue. It's going to be a little bit interesting because I would typically set up my painting surface at about shoulder height. I like to stand when I paint. And so I would normally have the center of my canvas at this height right here. And it's, a little bit lower, and I can't raise up my easel anymore just because I wanted it to make sure I had a nice flat surface. So I put it along the bottom of the easel. I've also grabbed my T-square so that I can figure out a couple important things like my horizon line, where it is. And I may be dancing around a little bit because just to see on my monitor, I put lines. Let me go ahead and share my Photoshop. I've borrowed my daughter's new Photoshop. And so I'm learning about how to use it. You guys can all see the reference on the screen there. So you see, let me do view. So there's the scene. I added a bunch of foreground water because otherwise the horizon line was right in the middle. So I added more, just a bunch of blank space there so that I can raise up my horizon line a little bit. And I may end up putting a couple grasses or maybe even a couple lily pads or something into the grass, into the water. So it's not such a big blank space. We'll see. Yeah, and then what you'll see here is when I show extras, all these lines are guidelines. So I put it like along the base of the horizon here or the base of the trees where they meet the water. And I made it so that the image is the size of the canvas. So I made it 24 inches tall by 36 inches wide. And that way what I can do is I can see, okay, the bottom of these trees, if I come over here, I know you probably can't see it on your monitor, it's so tiny, but it's 10.5 inches down. So I will go ahead and mark that and tell so I know where. And then also my focal point, kind of where the eye is going to kind of slowly go back, is at the 21.5 inches over. So mark that. And I'm probably just going to be pretty loose with the trees. I don't care if they look just like this. Anyways, thought that was a nice scene. Very, very, very warm. So hopefully you guys are okay with that. Maybe next week I'll do something on the cooler, grayer side, or maybe I'll just keep working on this. We'll see how far we get. So the big, more important line was this one. Just where are the base of those trees? Where do they meet up? And they're approximately 8 inches on each side if I wanted to use my reference specifically to tell me the height of these trees. So in this square here. Yeah, so if I need to, I will bounce over to here to check if I am insecure about any of the lines, but that's a lot of how I'll do when I'm taking a drawing or a photo over to my canvas. I will just kind of give it a couple quick measurements, a couple big guidelines, and that's it. But it looks like 10.5 is my most important. That's that line. So let's pop back over.
Where did you shoot that?
It is called Commonwealth Park in Beaverton. And so it's there's a trail that goes all the way around this little lake. And I just figured the fall colors would be pretty nice. They weren't as strong as I had thought they might be, but I was also there at sunrise. But yeah, it's a nice spot to go for a morning walk. I usually do the loop a couple times. It's not too long. And a lot of times I'll walk one direction one time, take photos and walk the other direction because you just see things slightly differently, right? But yeah, Commonwealth Park, for those of you who are semi-local, beautiful, nice spot. Lots of people walking their dogs and there's a little playground there. Paint tubes everywhere, so moving those out of the way. And I guess I'll go ahead and cover it with the Indian yellow first and then do some of my drawing on top of that. I'm going to be using a big brush, and I went ahead and put some of the Indian yellow down on my palette so that my big palette down below, so I wouldn't be making such a big mess up above. So this is Indian yellow with quite a bit of paint thinner, a great big shop brush or a house painting brush. And you can hear that my surface is pretty rough. This is not sanded down. but I figured I will attack this painting in earnest. And I'll be using quite a lot of paint. And so the texture to this panel, the roughness that I gessoed it with might help, hopefully. And again, I'm just doing this because I am going to be doing wipe away method to kind of rough in my big shapes. Normally, I would come back in and wipe this down with a paper towel, but I'm actually going to let the dryness of the board soak up some of that paint thinner. Let that sit for just a little second, and then I'm going to come back in with my earth reds, clean up my palette. Got to admit, I'm a little bit nervous, you guys. This is a big surface to be demoing on. I don't know if I've ever demoed so large before, but you know, class, whatever this is, we've been in here for a while. We're good friends. You guys,
you can do it. You can do it. You can do it.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit while we're letting this soak in for about 1 or 2 minutes here. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on the progression of these classes and what it is you've learned. It's a great way to kind of let some of the lessons sink in. And so when we started with values and design a little bit. So yeah, who would like to start with some of their favorite things that they or things that they think will be the most useful for them going forward?
I think experimenting with different palettes is really going to be fun.
I agree.
Good. Yeah, it is a lot of fun. I mean, that's what we're doing even today. So again, it's 24 inches tall. I'm going to mark off roughly at about the 10-inch area. Go over here and do it again, just so I know I got a kind of a straight line. I love the T-squares.
I just bought one.
I can't find mine that I bought.
Yeah, they sell them at the dollar store too, so you can grab some little plastic ones if you're a plein air painter.
Kathleen, where did you find it?
I think I bought it on Amazon.
Dick Blake sells them too.
I think I bought mine at the last class at Michael's, and I don't know, I put it somewhere. It's somewhere.
Yeah, I have them all over the place. I have all different sizes from the 6 inches to 1 foot to 24 inches to 36 inches. And then I've also got the super beast mode one here that's 48 inches that can do angles as well, which is kind of nice.
Wow.
This one's adjustable. I never use this one. It's really heavy. I think it's meant to go on a desk.
That's
My
interesting.
husband probably put it in the garage thinking it was his.
Oh, there you go.
Do not buy a clear plastic one. I forever can't find mine when it's right in front of me.
Yeah, that's
Paint-
what the dollar
Paint it
store ones
purple.
are.
Paint it purple on the back side.
All right, so Kate said that color mixing, Michelle agreed. What else do you guys find useful and interesting going forward here in your paintings?
Palette. It's been helpful to just work in a limited palette. And I mean, the tonal colors, I mean, whether they feel natural or not, to just try to be thinking in terms of those earthier tones. And it's kind of changed a little bit, even just driving around the neighborhood, and then how I look at my inspiration photos of like, well, if I was going to do this more tonal, then what paints would I use to kind of convey this emotion or vibe that this picture has versus, I mean, one thing that's interesting about it is that it's somewhat freeing in the sense that you look at a picture and in real life, you might see brighter colors or more colors, but it's helpful to think, it helps me to be more reductionist. Like, okay, there might be this sort of rainbow effect in real life, but if I want to be thinking in a more tonalist palette, then I can convey something totally different. It's kind of like a puzzle a little bit. The challenge has been fun, thinking about pictures in a different way.
I really like that. So what I kind of understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're able to look beyond just the colors and go, you know what, maybe the colors aren't as exciting or as interesting as I wanted, but within that, you're finding the value structure and the design elements that you might be able to still use. And
yeah, I mean,
up in that way.
Because I mean, color, this might sound negative, but I don't mean it this way. Like, color can be a little bit of a crutch because it's easy to fall in love with them. Right? It's like that, like you take the stuff out of the tube and it's like, oh, this is pretty and this is exciting. And then I just kind of like go down the primrose path, no pun intended, of the colors. And then it's easy to kind of get off track from some of the more like technical structural components, and focusing on a more tonalist palette has made me think more about trying to develop my structural skills.
You're saying
And
that
for me, oh, excuse me, go ahead.
Oh yeah.
I was going to say, for me, it's always a temptation to copy the photo.
Yes.
And in tonalism, it's like I can take a colored photo that's brightly colored and I can make it very subdued and very much tonal when it is very colorful. And
so it's even, the palette is limited, but it can actually be very freeing. I guess that's sort of what I'm trying to get at, that like it forces me to work on some things that are more technical, but it's also takes this weight off of struggling with a bunch of different colors. And then I don't have to worry about matching the picture, just like you're saying. It's like the picture doesn't matter. I'm trying to do something different from the picture. I mean, obviously some pictures naturally lend them, like I'm looking out my window right now and I live in Bend and I see gold and, you know, earth reds and soft greens. I mean, I kind of live in a tonal palette, but but lots of other pictures don't have that. I mean, I have all these pictures from like amazing national parks and stuff, and they're beautiful, but it's easy to get overwhelmed by the color, and looking at them tonally has been freeing.
Yeah, so how I often will think about that or talk about that is with black and white photos in mind, about how effective black and white photography can be. And sometimes, you know, it's better black and white. And so that same thing can be said for, for going to tonalism as well.
Well, and I think it forces me to think more like an artist and not just copy what I see in front of me.
Well, I find it very freeing to not have to put out a green. If you put out a red, a yellow, and something, or a red, yellow, and a blue, you can make basically any color you want to some degree. And if you look in nature, everything comes from red, yellow, and blue. So when you squint, when I go out and I squint down in the morning, and even midday, the colors I see are still red, yellow, and blue on the horizon, with mixes of within that red, yellow, and blue. If I limit myself, I can create any color I want when I paint, with red, yellow, and blue, and a white, and maybe a touch of black. And
Yeah, and because you're using that limited palette, you're going to get an innate harmony. The colors
yes,
more related.
and what I got from, I mean, the mother color is like, oh my God, it makes everything sing. It makes everything just so cohesive and go together. It's like Mother Nature. You're really representing and coloring the earth when if you're plein air painting. I mean, not painting some china or something, in your house, but when you're out painting the landscape, if you use that mother color, you make everything work. That's what I've gotten from it.
I love that. No, that's exactly right. And that's, I mean, what you guys are saying is a lot of what drew me to it over time. Yeah, and I also just like, I love color just like everybody else. That's why I could never just call myself a tonalist painter. But I love harmony. I love subtlety in paintings. I love the grays. I love the browns. Yeah, and then I told the story about, in my early plein air days of just having the challenge given to me by one of my friends of just focusing on design for a while and structure, and then having all those black and white paintings. Did I tell that story in this class?
Yes.
Yeah, about
Okay.
values.
Yeah, and so I had all those value underpaintings, and then able to, during the winter months, come back in and just color those up. And oh man, did I really just, I learned so much about how you can just, if the values read and the structure is there, the design, the structure, you can really go crazy with color and get away with it. And people will accept it as fairly real.
I don't think we looked at any of his pictures when we were kind of looking at that collection a few weeks ago, but is it Edgar Payne? Am I remembering his name right?
Yep.
Payne is his last name.
Yeah,
And he was
P-A-Y-N-E.
Yeah, Payne. And he was kind of a very established California impressionist,
Yeah.
but he actually painted all over the world, and he did these really big scale landscapes. Like, kind of his specialty was mountain paintings, and he would schlep all of his stuff up like into the Alps and the High Sierra in California, and do these beautiful paintings. And some of them, he has a whole series of beautiful sailboats like from France and Spain that are very impressionist. But in the landscapes, going to kind of the limited palette and talking about the grays and browns, I recently got his book because his paintings to me are gorgeous. And I've just been awed by how many different grays he used. I mean, they're color paintings, they're not just black and white, but in a lot of them, you could just like put your hands over the sections of green or blue for the sky or water and trees. And it's just the mountain renderings are really amazing. And they're just, it's like warm grays, cool grays, like slight, things with a slightly, I guess he used a lot of kind of the transparent red ochres and earth red as his underpainting. So they have a lot of that warmth underneath, but then there's times where it's cool. It's just incredible how he's using gray, but it has so much variation within the gray. And that's kind of another piece of working like just in the black and whites original, or just in the gray tones, or with the kind of the beginning of the class, was thinking that there's actually a lot of room to work just in gray.
So much. I mean, if you think of a big color wheel, all of the colors inside of it are grayed and browned down. And it's, it's so much space in there. So yeah, good point.
I
And
think
then when you use pure color, then it really sings against
Right,
those waves.
yeah, you get to kind of reserve it for this, when it's special.
I think painting is like one of the most brain enhancing things that we can do at any age in our lives, because anytime you learn something new, you open new neural pathways, and then when you repeat it, it grows, and then you take another class and you learn something else and you repeat it, and you keep going with all of this. I read somewhere, and I'm a nurse, retired, I read somewhere that an artist has to think of like 22 different things at one time to really make the painting be appropriate, to be a good qualified painting in this, well, whoever's category. And that a neurosurgeon had less things to think about than an artist does.
Huh, all right. I like that. Yeah, but it's true. I mean, even every brush stroke of how much pressure, how much paint, how much, what's the angle of the brush, all of these
Everything.
things. Yeah, it's really, really interesting. I
And
want
Well,
to
there is,
go ahead.
in rehab, we used art to help stroke victims activate the brain again. Just to manipulate paint, color, just to use a pencil or anything. And a pencil with lead in it, the graphite, we don't have lead in it, we have graphite in the pencil. But to have graphite on paper actually makes good neural connections in our brain and opens new neural concepts with your thoughts. So if you're having a new thought, it actually opens your brain and make new little blood vessels, new little electrical impulses to activate and make your brain bigger and stronger, and keeping memory going, and so painting is a good thing to do. It's just, I love it. And I thank you so much, Michael, for letting me take this class with you.
No, thank you.
Amen.
Thank you.
I find that even though a lot of the principles may be repeated as I've been taking classes, maybe I'm a slow learner, but or it changes every time I take it. I'm reminded of things, and that maybe I'm forgetting, or also then maybe hopefully if my skill is improving, then those
Exactly.
principles will also change within my perspective of how within my perspective as I go.
Exactly. And we need to hear things more than once to learn it, to actually learn it, sometimes about 8 times. So and every teacher expresses in a different way. So we're hearing it, and we learn in different ways, in different manners. So it all depends on how you learn, who you'll hear and understand something from.
100%. I love watching, paint videos. I still take classes and workshops, at least 1 or 2 a year. And a lot of times it's literally to learn how they're talking about it. Like, are they describing the same thing in a slightly different way? And then I'll, if it's easier to understand, more useful, I will try to, think about that and share it in it, all these different things. Because yeah, it's such a strange thing to teach painting, because a lot of us kind of, I don't want to say come about it naturally, but we kind of do it by just painting, right? A lot of what we learn is by just the repetition, by all the mistakes that we've made. And so when I teach, I'm trying to save you guys, to streamline and like a lot of the years of anguish and, destroyed canvases. I'm trying to say, here, if I knew this when I was starting out, I would have hopefully saved myself a lot of time. But then as I've taught all these years now, I realized that a lot of it has to be learned in that way. We have to learn by making lots of less than beautiful paintings. And a lot of, whether or not you want to call them mistakes or accidents, and that works both ways, because sometimes those little accidents become a part of our style and our technique. It's something that's original to us, and something that's, yeah.
Well, it's
It's-
almost, it's really like learning a language. And
It
you,
is.
it's, you know, you first you learn the basics, and that's like learning present tense. And then you start to learn more of the subtleties. And that, you know, then you're learning different tenses, and then you start to learn idioms. And, you know, but then even though we all speak English, we all kind of have slightly different ways that we express things. And it's kind of, I mean, that's really the ultimate expression of fluency, right? When you know, the things you're parroting, just like you do when you're a kid and you're learning a language, but then you just start to make your own voice. That's kind of the culmination, is when you actually get to a point where you know what you want to say and you can actually say it. And I feel like I know what I want to say, and I'm like still struggling to say it. But that's, I mean, that's the process, right? So
Well, yeah, and that is completely true. And you're gonna always be pushing what you want to say. You know, in the
Yeah.
beginning, it's enough to make a circle turn into a sphere by adding a little bit of shading. But eventually you're like, oh, I want to make that into an apple. Oh, I want to make it into a bowl
Yeah.
of apples. Oh, I want to make it a bowl of apples under warm light. And it just on and on. And so we just continue to push ourselves. What you were saying about language reminds me of a TED Talk. It's a composer / music teacher. I think he teaches, I don't know. But he talks about one butt or two butt cheek piano players versus one butt cheek piano players versus no butt cheek piano players. And he talks about when we're learning, you know, when he's teaching kids and they're just starting out, they sit squarely on the piano stool and both hands, you know, in the right position. And they're, you know, playing, you know, very stiffly. They're just trying to put their finger in the right key at the right time, keeping a rhythm. And then eventually they get to where, you know, as they're playing across the keys, they're leaning on one cheek and then the other, and there's a lot more movement, and they're not, you know, the rhythm, they're making up maybe the pacing of the music and everything else. And then eventually, you know, they're standing and playing and just really almost dancing with the piano and, you know, expressing themselves, and they're no longer thinking about, you know, each individual note and everything else. And I think that's very true with painting as well, is eventually you get into a fluency and you're trusting yourself. But in the beginning, it's not. It's every brushstroke is a challenge and an experiment, and it takes time. It takes a long time. And it comes and goes. Sometimes I step up to the easel and I feel like I'm king of the castle, and other days I feel like I'm having to relearn everything and everything's difficult and I'm having to, you know, concentrate. And I wish it was a straight line of that knowledge and expertise was a straight line up, but it really isn't.
Oh, for a while, schools were just teaching STEM, which was the science, technology, engineering, and math. And now they've added the A, it's STEAM, because they realized without the arts that part of the mind wasn't developing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the only way any children that are being born now are going to be able to compete is with creativity. I mean, everything that's done with just math and technology, I mean, those are jobs that are, you know, for the most part, going to be done by machines or anybody's going to be able to do. So yeah, to succeed, creativity is going to be the key. And whether or not it's art, you know, direct art as we think about it, like painting and poetry and that kind of thing. But I think just the ability to think creatively. We had a kid in my high school who was so smart. And he and I played soccer together, and we were on defense sitting in the backfield, kind of bored one day. And he you know, he got full ride scholarship to MIT and everything, and ended up doing computer learning and teaching the computers how to learn. And but anyways, during the soccer game, he kind of tells me, he's like, you know what, if I wasn't studying math and all this stuff, I would be an artist like you. And I was like, that is so cool. Like that's, and he actually thought of math as a form of art. because he was so beyond everybody else, like beyond the teachers. He was taking college courses in high school and everything else. And I really liked that kind of anything that you get really good at becomes an art form, and that takes that creativity. So what I'm going to do now is brush that out a little bit. I've kind of just underlying my big darks, my structure a little bit, and giving myself kind of my blueprint, as it were. And what I want to do is brush it out so I got kind of soften a lot of these edges. I'm just going to take that big brush that has the Indian yellow, clean it so it's not sopping wet. And I'm going to brush that out. And then I'm going to go ahead and step back for a second, just so that I can go, you know what, okay, maybe my reflections aren't quite right. But this is, you know, maybe not the most fun part to watch as a student. But it's super important that I get this kind of underlying design and structure.
I love watching you do this part. I think this is your foundation. I mean, that this is like the most important part of the whole painting. It's not the icing, but if you don't do this, you can't put the icing on it.
Right, yeah. No, I like that. It's a good way to say it.
My husband wants me to make a cake.
I think what you do here is also sort of, it helps me try to think about being looser and imprecise, which I struggle with.
Well, I'm thinking of this phase of it as very sculptural. So again, imagine what I'm doing is, if it was a sculpture, I've taken a little armature, maybe that line, my horizon line was my armature, and then I'm adding clay to it. And it's kind of just a loose mound of loosely formed. It's kind of maybe beginning to look like whatever it is I'm going to sculpt. And then I'm going to be able to come back in with my paper towels and start to remove some of this paint and carve it out a little bit. So that's my favorite part about oils versus watercolors or acrylics, is that it's a adding and subtractive way of painting, at least my technique. A lot of people don't do it that way, but it seems to work, again, with just my brain. That's why I try to teach multiple different ways of painting, so that you are able to find the one that works for you, and also for your painting, because sometimes this, you know, wouldn't be the best approach for, you know, a different subject or a different mood.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like in high school, I was really pretty bad at math until I got into geometry. I mean, math was always a big struggle for me. But when I got into geometry, and it was very visual, and I could actually understand what the numbers represented, you know, by drawing out the forms, all of a sudden math was so much easier for me. And, you know, that teacher realized that I was a visual learner, and definitely he would demonstrate the equations in multiple ways for the multiple students. And I just thought that was so amazing. I felt like he was kind of ahead, because when my daughter got to school, they were definitely more aware of that different students, you know, you got the visual learner, the audible learner, the
Kinesthetic.
learner. The what's that?
Kinesthetic.
Kinesthetic. All right. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I've got a couple teachers here. I should let you guys describe it more, but I remember when, you know, helping my daughter with her homework and seeing that they were presenting multiple ways within the books. I just thought, oh, that's so nice. My daughter's definitely a visual learner too, and kinesthetic.
Those are the most creative people in the world. I really think so.
I wonder if there is any tie in between different learning styles and different things.
There is, I think. I've studied a lot of it in psychology and stuff like that, and neurolinguistics, how we can speak verbally for 10 hours, but people are really, they don't hear us anymore. They watch our body language and how we present. And if we are really truthfully believing what we're talking about, I think the human brain is so magnificent. We don't understand our full potential as human beings.
Well,
You
yeah,
know,
for sure.
There-
I'm just gonna step back, keep talking, but I'm just gonna step back, if you're wondering why I'm not painting, just to observe and see. I wanna make sure my reflections are at least getting good enough shapes that I'll be able to replicate in the reflections as above.
I think it's beautiful. It's a beautiful start.
There's a book called Aging with Grace, What the Nun Study Teaches Us About Leading Longer, Healthier, and More Meaningful Lives. And it's amazing about this cloistered group of nuns. I think it was in Minnesota, and everything about their lifestyle and use of soaps and everything was the same, with the exception of some learned, the ones who played music or did art, but specifically music was the biggest thing. The playing music supposedly lights up most areas of the brain, more areas than most things. But art or learning new things, those women lived longer than the ones who were just happy doing the same job that they enjoyed and enjoyed their life. But the ones, generally speaking, who were still learning and all had a higher quality of life and lived longer.
Ah, that's really interesting.
Aging with Grace.
Aging with Grace. I was gonna ask who Grace is, but now I understand. Yeah, my mom is was an English teacher, retired English teacher, and she's an amazing writer, poet, and she just hasn't been feeling well and has stopped writing. And you know, her health has been getting, unfortunately, kind of worse. And we had a long talk the other day, and I was telling her, I was like, you know what, maybe getting back to the thing, you know, that's challenging you and that you love doing might actually make you feel better.
It will.
Off. So I'm just removing some of this yellow in the sky, and I'm going to use this opportunity to kind of begin to carve out some of the tops of those trees a little bit. I'm going to come back in with actually lots of paint into the sky, and I'm wondering if I almost want to do some of my sky first so that I can begin to see the shapes of these trees a little bit better, because everything is so warm at this moment. And also what I'm doing here is I'm removing some of this slippery paint that's up there so that I can apply the paint better. So it's a twofold thing. I'm, you know, carving, I'm shaping, I'm thinking about my flow of the shapes and the design, but I'm also making it so that I'll be able to get more paint on there quicker.
I used to live, when I lived in Phoenix almost 2 years ago, for 20 years, 3 miles from an art store. And now I'm 80 miles. So I'm making a list of paints that I need. And the week between Christmas and New Year, I'm planning a journey of about 75 miles to go buy some paints.
That's awesome. Yeah, you got to think ahead for sure.
Yes.
One of the artists I follow on YouTube is in New Zealand, and he talks about that too. About, I think his trip is, you know, 3 hours away.
Well,
Gosh,
But
I order everything online.
I do mostly as well.
I'm gonna have to start that because I just can't take not having what I need.
Well, and if you order enough, a lot of times you don't even pay for shipping. They give you
Oh.
free shipping.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Dick Blick does that. Cheap Joe's does that. Jerry's Artorama does that. And if you live in the Portland area, there's a wonderful store called Mary Artist in McMinnville. And
Oh, wow.
they are wonderful. And you get it the next day from them.
Oh, my
Wow.
goodness.
I've heard a lot of good things about that art store.
What was the name of it again? I wonder if I could order from them.
It's Mary Artist. It's MERRI, then Artist. And it's in McMinnville, Oregon.
So right now I'm truly thinking abstractly,
Thank
especially
you.
when I'm down below, because I kind of like these shapes, I think. So now I'm just looking up and trying to kind of mimic an inverse, which is always an interesting way to think of those shapes. Trying to do fairly mirror-like reflections is one of my greatest challenges, because it sure shows you when it's wrong. So again, something I'll spend a little more time just getting right here at this point in the painting. I'm going to let the reflections in the water not be fully mirror-like. I'll probably have them a little softer, which allows for a little bit of room for fudging it, but I may as well get it close.
That reflection on the left looks a little bit pointed compared to the tree.
Right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and start painting into that sky and clean this brush. I want to use the brush that's my dark brush, so that means I got to get it really quite clean. So give me 1 second as I do that. All right, so what have we talked about so far? We talked about the limited palette, or yeah, mixing with new palettes and experimenting with different colors. We talked about finding the basically being freed up from our photos and from the true colors that we're seeing, and being able to interpret those and bring in our own ideas. And in that, I would also say that it's fun to combine references. Like a lot of times I will take a scene, excuse me, turn it to black and white, get that design because I like the design in one photo, but then I'll like the color scheme or the feeling, the mood in another painting. And so I'll just kind of incorporate that into it. So if that's anything that's interesting for you guys, if you're like, I really like the design, the underlying structure, maybe the shapes of the trees, but I really like the colors in another painting or another, even like rug or whatever else, we're free to play. All right, so what else? What about the value keys? What did you guys think about that part? I know some of you really kind of flourished in those.
I think it's going to be medium.
Oh yeah, you're asking about this one?
Yeah.
I think it's
Oh.
almost gonna end up being full value range because I'm gonna have some dark darks here and
Okay,
it's gonna be almost black here and almost pure white over here.
okay, you're right.
Um,
I love the value key studies.
but here's something that I neglected to mention that when I was first being introduced to value keys that really, really affected how I paint is, let me see if I have an example anywhere here. I'm just gonna grab this painting. This painting just sold yesterday. And this was,
Congratulations.
That's beautiful.
this is a little plein air painting that I did at my friend's house. And when using the value keys, if I kind of look into the foreground area, it's a pretty full, you know, dark to mid. And then I get back into the mid area here and it becomes a mid value only painting. And then when I get to the sky, it becomes a high key value painting, right? So a lot of times I will think about my painting in different sections as well. And often the recession of space will really help us to, if you think about, okay, now I'm, you know, in the mid range of the distance. So I'm going to try to keep things in the mid values. Okay, now I'm, you know, in the foreground, I'm going to open it up. I'm going to have a full value range, or at least my darks are going to be darker. So that's something that's really helped me. So if you remember the value chart here, kind of shiny, but this is the full value, the low key, high key, and mid key. I will actually think about, okay, the foreground can be full, the or low range. My as I go back into distance, become a mid range, and then when I get into the sky, becomes oftentimes high key. So see if that's something that might help you as you are thinking about, you know, what part, where you are in the painting.
So what color is the darks?
In this painting,
Uh-huh.
it's ultramarine blue and the earth red.
Okay.
Yeah, so far I have Indian yellow, earth red, and ultramarine blue. And the ultramarine blue does not look blue anywhere. It's just, I just made a dark out of it. Yeah.
And they told me yesterday at Blix that it's no longer Indian yellow.
Yes,
It's yellow
India.
from India.
India yellow. Yep, I like that
The
better.
person telling me that
Oh.
was Native
What is-
American. So,
What is it called again? Yellow of India?
Yellow of India, because the
Oh.
guy that sold it to me was Native American.
Oh,
And I never thought of it as Native American Indian. I always thought of it as India Indian.
I didn't think of it at all. I was sad to say.
I just thought of it as bright, beautiful, and golden, and I love it. That's the color of the sky when I get up in the morning.
Oh, I bet it is. Yeah, where you live.
It's so gorgeous.
Gray is the color of my sky when I wake up most of the time.
Oh,
It's all right. I love gray.
I love grays too. As long as they don't cover the sun.
And you might not love Oregon as much.
I know. When I visited Oregon last, it was in September, and it was the most beautiful, sparkling, clear skies, big fluffy Monet clouds. It was so freaking gorgeous. From horse country, great to the shore, you know, it was absolutely exquisite. In the Rose Garden in Portland was absolutely magnificent.
I'm glad you got that. Yeah, and it, for better or worse, Oregon definitely gets more sun than it used to.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, maybe. So far, we've been pretty lucky. I'm just using a big brush to cover a big area, and I'm leaving a bit of a halo around my trees. I'm not using this great big brush right now to carve in yet.
What color?
This is
White.
basically white, but because of that Indian yellow, as I'm pushing it, it's picking up that underpaint that I hadn't wiped off completely. So I'm not gonna add any more white. What I'm gonna do is just keep pushing it, and it should get yellower, oranger as I go towards this portion of the painting. And sometimes using these big choppy brushes, I actually end up with nice kind of textures along the tops of the trees. So sometimes I can actually use some of that as kind of an organic feeling brush strokes. Yeah, I knew it would be a good idea to kind of get my sky so that now all of a sudden this even feels warmer right along the kind of the edges of these trees. Still almost, I'm still kind of thinking of it as roughing it in. Just kind of trying to find these shapes and the structure. And I just thought that having a third color, if you want to think of white as a color in this instance, or a third value, or a tint in this case, might help me to clarify my thinking. So a lot of times I definitely kind of sneak up on my paintings a little bit, as it were. I'm trying to figure out where my brightest bright is going to be, and I believe it's going to be right behind this tree, kind of coming out here. So maybe I'll kind of play that up a little bit, just as a note to myself. Yeah, even that just extra little bit of white there for right now, it's helping me to read it a little better, I think. Can you imagine if I was doing this with a little brush and just kind of dabbing in my shapes? I would make myself and you guys crazy.
No, I can't imagine that at all.
And remember that challenge that I was talking about doing, what if I had to do the painting in 10 brush strokes or 20? I've done it in plein air where I challenge my students to do it in 30 brush strokes. So you actually have to mix your color and everything else. But I could almost do the sky in as few as 1 or 2 brush strokes. Let's just count. If I just put down my brush and the brush stroke is good until I pick up the brush.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Well, that's something new.
I like that.
That seems like cheating to call that one brushstroke.
Yeah, that's why we take these classes, right?
Yeah,
How to cheat at painting.
that's a wonderful technique.
Isn't that
Yep.
cool?
That is so cool, Michael. And look at the gradation in the water, just like it's natural. I mean, it's beautiful.
Still on the same brush stroke.
Wow.
Just changing my pressure, but I haven't picked up the brush because I'm a big cheater.
Michael, do you ever use one of those big fluffy brushes? I have one and I'm afraid to use it because I'm afraid that once I clean it, it won't be fluffy anymore.
Yeah, you're talking about like this, the mops.
Right.
Yeah, they throw hairs like crazy. I've never bought a good one. Again, these are ones I just go back and steal from my daughter from time to time. Yeah, so let me just show a painting I was working on yesterday. Talk about high key. This was all about just super soft transitions. I don't know if you can kind of see, but there is the idea of some detail, and like you can see the bank where maybe a bush is, the tops of the trees and everything else. So I did end up using this brush to soften some edges where I wanted the tree to kind of disappear into the sky and different things. I was just curious, like how little could I get away with and actually still make a painting? You know, thinking about high key, low key, mid key. And, you know, this one, maybe I'll come back in and add something into the foreground. I thought maybe I should probably darken the water in the foreground to make it look so it's not just flat, but have a sense of depth. But yeah, I like that. And I may come back in and lighten the highlights just a touch more. But and I really loved just the grays of the blue gray, the pink gray, kind of a yellowish gray. So anyways, yes, I do use those brushes from time to time. They're over here in my daughter's brush collection that I steal from, but just have to make sure I clean them really well. Trying to
Charlie Hunter recommends a brush like that from Rosemary called a badger brush, and he swears by that one.
That's probably a much better quality because yeah, I spend half my, I'll paint for 15 minutes and spend 20 minutes picking out hairs.
Yeah, he says it's really expensive.
Yeah, I bet, especially if it's actual badger. So this is one where I just wanted to see about a higher chroma, like that bright pink. This will end up being an ocean scene. I just haven't painted it in, but I really wanted to make this subtle too. So I actually used paper towels to kind of wipe back towards that pink, but then the lines became too crisp and too hard. So then I used that same brush to soften some of that. There's just a smaller one that I used. Yeah, a little tiny one. Just a little tiny cutie that I used to do, you know, little 6-inch by 6-inch painting. So constantly playing and experimenting. I've been working on this big guy lately, and
that's beautiful.
I get bored with that, and then I, you know, or need something just kind of dry and set up, and I'll just start picking up little experiments. And I've just got a number of different experiments going of, I wanted to do a vibrant but very low key. So, you know, even though I'm, you know, when I'm teaching these, I'm still learning. I wanted to do a low key painting, but make it vibrant. And so just experimenting because these reds and oranges
That's gorgeous.
are
That's
actually
gorgeous.
very dark. Like if I turn this into a black and white, or if you squint your eyes, it feels bright, but it feels light, but it's not. It's just a vibrant color compared to all the blue, grays, and purples.
Just a side note, you know, like the like super glue that comes in the tiny little tubes at the dollar store. I have taken some of that glue and the big puffy brush that you have to soften with. If you take the glue and just work it right in at the ferrule and just smoosh it in right in there, they don't fall out as bad. Or any of the brushes, like all the cheap brushes, the hairs won't fall out if you put just a line of glue like all around it, and then just kind of work it right in right there, right at the top, and let it sit for a minute or two. It'll dry fast. That super glue dries pretty fast.
It sure does. What does paint thinner do to it? Do you know?
Nothing. It hasn't bothered it really, but I don't use a lot of paint thinner. I don't clean my brushes pretty much. If I clean it, it's in white paint, a little white paint, and just wipe it out real good. Or I use just dish soap to knock the oils out of it. I use just dish soap. I don't use a lot of thinner at all. I put it actually in a soda pop cap, and if I use more than that, I've used too much.
Interesting. All right, well, good to know. Yeah, you'll probably be healthier.
Yeah, because just smelling that stuff makes you ill.
Yeah, definitely. I actually have So far I've actually been using a super solvent, a really strong paint stripper. So I'll put that away and now I'll go to the Gamblin Gamsol. I did the super cleaner because it dries so much faster. But yeah, it's luckily I have a super fan that cleans 2,000 square feet per whatever in here, filtration system.
That's good.
But
Because
otherwise,
if
good.
you can smell it, you've absorbed it. That's as the nurse talking.
All right. It's all capped up, sealed up, and I'm putting it in the closet. Great. So I'm gonna go ahead and move back into my trees. I got enough of the sky now that it kind of gives me an idea of, my values, my colors. I'll probably, cool down the sky a little bit, cool down the water later, more as I'm adding more color. But right now I want to get back to the trees and get in some color. I'm just using the leftover white on my brush real quick to kind of bring down some of this light. Yeah, it feels pretty warm, doesn't it? It's warmer on the monitor, at least for me, when I look over. These are, it doesn't look as brown. It looks much redder on the monitor. All right, so let's get into some color mixing and some smaller brushes. So over here on the colors, I've probably still kind of used some of that earth red. The fast mat, it's pretty stiff. I'm gonna mix some yellow gold in with that. I'm kind of just making a bit of a mother color here. Even though there'll be quite a bit of color in these trees of variation. I'm actually going to grab into my green and see what that does. Make one patch of that a little darker, or a lot darker. So this will give me, I've got my nice big shapes here, but I'll probably want to start carving in and actually, describing individual shrubs and trees and stuff a little more, because right now it's just a giant mash of lights or darks and mid values. And I'm curious, with all my yellows, both my yellows being very transparent, I may need a more opaque, a cadmium yellow of some sort. We'll see. I mean, I can always add a little white to it. So this is what, a smart person such as all of you would do, the little color tests. So this is the do as I say, not as I do part of the class, because I'm just attacking this giant crazy canvas, but I'm getting towards the greens that I like. Isn't that interesting, seeing it slowly transition over? Really beautiful. So let's just see what the yellow gold does with the sap green. Oh, it's lovely. Yeah. That is gonna work, I bet. There are going to be reds and oranges in this as well, in the trees and the leaves. It is a fall painting. That's really, really, really vibrant compared to all the other colors I've mixed yet, but in truth, it's a pretty subdued because there are some greens in there, but I don't want it nearly that bright. So I'm going to lighten it with my yellow ochre, and I'm going to settle it down with a little bit of green. A paper towel. I'm going to try doing the same thing, but this time with the alizarin. So my alizarin already leans towards purple. So it's going to be hard to make it a very vibrant red. Mix that with the gold ochre. Let's see what happens. Add a little bit of that green into there. So I added too much green. It got really dark, but some nice things going on there. And the big thing I've got to remember is that it's always comparative to what's next to it. So a color that while I'm mixing it doesn't look red at all, if I put it next to a green, should appear redder than it does by itself. And try combining these two. It's interesting, but I am liking this harmony in here. Just as you guys know from painting I did a couple weeks ago, I love the green with the reds on tops, or the reds with the greens on tops. Reds with green on top, sorry. So I may see how this reads once I get it onto the canvas, but I do have some yellow. I need some more gold ochre. Don't want to be lazy. Make sure a lot of times when I run out of a color, I just get lazy and just, I guess I'm not using that color anymore. And that gets me in a lot of trouble. So always reminding myself to just do that little bit extra. I'm gonna mix the yellow ochre and Indian yellow and some white. Hot, hot, hot. So I may be able to use that to little red to mix with these other colors as the highlights where the sunlight is coming across and picking in. So if I am thinking like about this green, mixing that yellow with it will make it feel like the light side over there. So it's still related. And in fact, it almost made the same color, which is pretty interesting. They didn't use Indian yellow in these mixes. Let's try that combination with some of these reds. Yeah, what do you guys think of this kind of color harmony?
I love it.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah, and probably in truth, I would let this set up for a little bit longer. I am probably going to be wrestling with it a little bit as far as picking up the paint underneath it a little bit. But let's just keep marching forward, and you know, we got about 25 minutes left. So I'll just see how much I can get done. I'm going to go ahead and get into my darks and give me kind of a firmer structure here a little bit. And just kind of give me my work on my drawing underneath it, as it were. Kind of the shadows give me my structure, the darks give me my structure. The values do all the work, colors get all the credit. the area where the land meets the water is probably going to be my most important thing, just because it kind of grounds everything. So I just kind of want to make sure that I'm pretty confident in that, because if I make the trees, you know, not exactly like they're in the photos or whatever else, nobody's going to know, nobody's going to care. And in fact, I'll probably be changing them to make them more interesting, or editing them or combining them or whatever else as I'm going. And the truth is, I should probably be lightening these darks a little bit. So let me jump back over to my darkest darks are going to be in here. This is the shadow side of this tree. The light's coming from the right, hitting onto the right sides of these trees. So my darkest shadows will be kind of underneath these trees and along the bank there. I could change that because it's so far to the edge. So it might be almost better to bring some really nice darks in here. But I'm hoping that just these lines, these guiding lines of the bank will help, are going to be enough to lead the eye towards where I want it to be. So I'll be using values, colors, and line to create the idea of perspective and to lead the eye through the painting. Trying to be aware that I know when I do horizontal brush strokes, they become very glary for you guys on the monitor. So I'll do them and then I'll try to make them a little more vertical brush strokes and they won't pick up as glary. All right, so what else did we cover? We did the value keys. Yeah, let's talk about mother color a little bit. Who here, who in the group really responded to that and found that to be an interesting and useful idea?
I did. I love the mother color.
You
I
love your
think
mother.
I love the mother color. It just makes everything cohesive.
Yeah, absolutely. It's again, it's just like I cheated here by doing one giant brush stroke. Mother colors, sometimes I feel like I'm cheating because, you know, when I'm out plein air painting with a group and I'll do a mother color, you know, and all of a sudden people will be walking, you know, the other painters will stop and come over and be like, oh my gosh, there's so much harmony in your painting. How'd you do that? And I say, take my class. No, I'm just kidding. I say, you know, yeah, but it's an interesting, almost again, shortcut because yeah, while I'm out plein air painting, I'm still, for me, value design and value structure is still oftentimes my main priority of focus. Or there's times where I only mostly focus on color and they'll almost be like abstracts where I'm just like, oh, especially like when I'm visiting Bend and the grasses and the shrubs and oh, just I love the auburns and golds and stuff that are out in the high desert area of Oregon. I just get so infatuated with these color schemes. So I'll just go out and try to capture some of those sometimes. And I lighten my dark just a bit. Maybe even blew it down just a bit. Should probably make a decent pile of this. There's a big area there. Anybody else enjoy doing the mother colors or the theory at least of it?
I definitely can tell the difference when I don't do it. I think it really is a valuable thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, and the other thing is there's nothing wrong with having, you know, a multi-family painting. You can have 3 or 4 mothers, you know, you could have, so your sky keeps its harmony, you know, you don't have to put the green that's in your trees in your sky. You can have a mother color for your sky, a mother color for your, you know, grasses and ground forms. So it doesn't need to be only one. Of course, it'll be easier to keep your harmony if you really do only one. But a lot of times, yeah, I'll just mix up reasonable sized piles of about my 3 most important colors. And what I'm doing now is I'm just, again, looking to the shadows of where the ground plane meets my water. And that's going to hopefully just kind of ground things. I'm trying to establish that this area and this area are closer, a little lower compared to the horizon line. And then it goes up just a step and then up to back here. And in fact, I may even raise that up just a touch more. And my darks back here are going to be a little lighter than my darks as they come forward. I do have them a little cooler, especially in the deep shadow areas where the light's not really getting in. Then the darks will get a little bit warmer as they roll out towards where the light is catching a little more. All right, big question for you guys as we're kind of rolling down. I got about 15-20 minutes, so I'm obviously not going to be finishing this painting today. Would you guys like me to start and do another painting next week, or would you guys like me to save this for next week and kind of see adding color and everything else?
I vote saving it for
I
next.
agree.
Okay. Yeah, you guys have seen me start a lot of paintings, but you haven't really seen me finish much. So I'm fine to do that. I will try to save my colors and put them in the freezer for next week and not touch them. I'm just kind of deciding, you know, what values, how light can I make my darks back here and still have them read? And in fact, I think I can even get a little lighter. And I'm just kind of trying to figure out which of these big shapes and trees and bushes, you know, are useful to get really busy if I really start investigating this photo too closely. So I will be simplifying and editing. Again, when in doubt, take it out. If it's not helping, it's hurting. Usually less is definitely more in painting, and especially in tonalism. And I am going to kind of come through and soften these transitions. I'm just kind of giving myself an idea of which trees are further back here, which bushes.
So in this case, with the further back ones, you're not specifically going with gray, but you're going with a more muted shade of green. Little,
I mean, this is pretty gray in truth, but it is getting a little green as I keep picking up the yellow from underneath.
but it's not a blue-gray like we often see.
Right, yeah. Just because this is so blasted out and there's actually quite a bit of atmosphere way back there. So it's, you know, being permeated by this warm light. So I'm letting it get a little bit warmer than I might want, you know, might normally do. But I can always cool that down again. You know, I'm kind of testing the waters, as it were, testing the shadows in the trees and just seeing. But it is kind of coming across a little bit green. But I can, again, like I said, I can always kind of cool that down. You got to remember the reflections. Yeah, I feel like this part's probably pretty boring to watch right now. So I apologize.
I don't feel it's boring at all.
Thank you. Always be performing, always be entertaining. Just kidding. All right, I'm going to get back to my next darks and start working on the things that are in this area here a little more. And again, I'm just giving myself my structure. That I will be able to build the lights and the colors onto. And already I'm fighting my inner demons of let's just get to it. Come on, this will be fine. And just saying, no, we've done that 8,000 times where we just get ahead of ourselves and we end up spending too much time fixing and repairing and changing our minds. And I you know, just through hundreds and hundreds of less than happy paintings, know that in the end, I'm actually saving time a lot of the time when I'm a little bit more cautious and take my time building up my design and my structures. And this should help to tell me if it's reading, if, you know, the undersides of bushes and the top sides where they're catching the light and everything else is reading successfully. And what I'm going to do as soon as I get these kind of figured out and dialed in, I will in fact take probably one of the shop brushes and kind of feather it out a little bit so I don't have these really choppy brush strokes in the shadows. I don't want a lot of hard edges in my shadows. I'm going to use the color and the leaves and the things that are in the light to give me my texture and form. I don't want too much texture in my shadows. I want there to be some life in the shadows, but not nearly as much as where the light is hitting. Does that make sense? I'm actually going to pick up a messier brush because I am not liking how stiff everything's going on there. There we go. That feels better. Isn't that cool? I mean, just don't you all of a sudden begin to see a little bit of a structural element of this ground as the bushes are just getting a little more light? I mean, if I even just went through with the lightest touch of a paper towel or Q-tip or whatever, and watch what happens. The light's kind of behind here, so it's going to sneak through, and just watch what happens if I just. All of a sudden, just give it a little bit of. Isn't that interesting?
From here, it almost looks like a tree stump.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. Get some more cool into some of these shadows here. So they read as a little darker, a little deeper. All right, so this is gonna be my big dark over here. I may need to grab a softer brush. This one's very crunchy and I'm scratching back into the underpainting, but maybe that'll be kind of cool. Or maybe I just need to use a lighter touch. It's gonna be really a lot of fun to come back in with the awesome, interesting, dirty grays, dirty greens, and give this all its life. Thank you guys for letting me do such a big and interesting painting as a demo. Not that I would have listened if you said no, but
Michael, one thing that in this class that I did that I've wanted to do and I'm so happy about and I hope to continue is using that little journal I know I told you about, but it's helping me do some lessons within my journal. So I have this nice little journal, but then when I'm wanting to do an actual painting, then I can apply, you know, the little journal studies into the painting, and then I'm not using so much canvas for my studies.
oh yeah. So is it actually like a little painting journal, like made specifically for that, or?
It says it's a mixed media. I'm holding up, you don't have to look, Michael, but mixed media, it's a hard spiral.
Yeah, okay. My daughter has some of those. Yeah, those are great. You may want to gesso your paper, but you don't know. if you
I
need
did.
to.
I put 2 coats of gesso and then I have my notes on my left side and then my little studies on the right, and I tape it off and it looks kind of cute. And,
That's
so
awesome.
wish I had done it from our very first class, because then I'd hopefully really see some progress.
Yeah, well, better.
But I still have so much to learn that I'm sure I'll still see progress.
Well, yeah, maybe, and as you continue to hear it and everything else, you're actually gonna be able to kind of transcribe it a little more meaningfully. You don't have to put a question mark at the end of every statement. Darks before lights, question mark, thin to thick, question mark. Yeah, the structure is beginning. right? The And I'm almost thinking that the darks are getting close to being done because I want a lot of this warmth to be showing through almost as transparency. And I want the colors of the leaves and everything else to do a lot of the heavy lifting as far as creating the idea of structure and form as well as these shadows. So I may be getting about to where at least I could, what I'll do after class, as I said, is I'm going to come through and soften up some of these brush strokes. There's so not just these chunky kind of brush strokes, and that'll be just simply by just dragging a soft brush. And I guess I could do that real quickly here as we're in the last couple minutes. Making sure the brush is fairly soft. And I'm just going to kind of go from top down a little bit so that I'm not dragging the darks where I don't want them. So I'm just kind of staying within the same value range a little bit. So I'm not going back and forth from darks to lights to mids. And that's just me being lazy. I just don't want to keep having to clean my brush unnecessarily. Do the same down on the bottom, and then I'll come in towards the darks. And I'm using every opportunity to, again, just kind of make sure my tops and, the reflections and the things being reflected are mirroring each other at least fairly closely. A lot of times with water, I like to drag down from the bank. Another little kind of shortcut way to do some of that. And then I will drag across. Looks really like water in the on the monitor because of the glare. It's funny. And now I'll just use my brush to kind of mimic some of the shape. This tree's kind of fanning out. It's a bit of an oak tree, I believe. That's another opportunity just to kind of make sure as I'm in my loose kind of sketching sage still that I'm using every opportunity to kind of create the forms, the shapes. And just about done for today. Just give that a really soft vertical drag so the glare goes away into the trees. Hopefully. And you're right, Michelle, these did turn very green back here. So, you know, once it's dry, I'll be able to kind of decide what cool colors I do want back there when I'm coming back in with the colors. But I think that that still works to give me my kind of shape. All right, well, I'll tell you what, big painting like this, earning my Thanksgiving dinner. Great. So there we go again. Basic, kind of simple shapes, and I'll send out the photo with the video. There's quite a bit of green in there. And so anyways, there'll be a lot more color, but that actually almost kind of works already as a super bright, super hot fall colors. So, all right, let's pop over here and blow kisses to each other as we say goodbye here. Oops, not share screen, change camera.
What's the homework?
Get started on your big painting.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, the homework is we got a couple weeks to work on our big final project, and you got to do that while, you know, trying to digest a whole bunch of tryptophan from the turkey. So, you know, good luck. But yeah, it does not need to be big. I went a little crazy here with this. It could be any size you want, you guys. If you want to do another 8 by 10 inches or whatever. But what I want it to be is a painting that's a little more involved, using, you know, some of the things you've learned, some of the things that you enjoyed the most, or maybe if you want to challenge yourself, it's something that you found more challenging. Yeah, I just want you to try to make something that you're going to be a little more proud of leaving here. You know, I find in my classes when I do only exercise, practice, it's not as rewarding. I think it's nice when people can have something to hang on their wall or whatever it is, something that's a little more finished. And I also find that in my teaching gives people an opportunity to let these things that we've been learning and discussing sink in a little bit, right? If I just keep throwing lesson at you nonstop, you know, and you walk out of here with 8 different lessons, none of them really sink in. So think about what it is, you know, the subject, the design, the colors, figure out what elements are you working on? Is it you know, are you working on different value keys? Are you working on mother color? Are you working on a different, you know, more interesting color palette? What it is, take your time, maybe do a couple preliminary sketches, maybe do the little color chart to see if your colors are actually going to work for the painting. That's probably what I will do a little bit more before we meet next, just so I can get a better handle on these colors that I've chosen, and maybe I will pick up a different color or two. I think maybe a cadmium yellow medium or something might be an interesting add to this palette. And I might also look at the palette and say, what colors don't I need, so I can make it a little more minimal again. Does that make sense, you guys?
Yes.
If you would like to send any references or, you know, ideas out, feel free to email me or put them in the Facebook group and just see if you think it's a good idea for a final assignment. But otherwise, I trust you. Trust yourselves.
Michael, I know you mentioned that you were going to mention something about OSA's student thing, show that's coming up in January, is it?
Yeah. Let's see if we can get back to Facebook here. I think I put it here somewhere.
Oh, did you? I'm sorry, I haven't looked.
No, I don't know. Here's the other thing is the color class for starting in January has been posted on there. Did I send that out as an email at all?
No, I didn't get it.
Okay, I will try to remember to attach that with the video as well. Yeah, it looks like I have it. Okay, so I'm just going to pin this to the top. There is a thing, we have our student teacher show coming up. I would love for you guys to enter a painting or two. It's always fantastic when we get a nice little grouping, make a little bit of a presence. So if you're local, or Linda or whoever else is willing to ship a painting, we got a nice little gallery at the Oregon Society of Arts, Oregon School of Arts. And if you want to show any work, so there's that. And then here's about, I'm going to also pin that. So it'll be at the very top of the page when you visit it. I didn't make a very big, interesting thing, but glowing color in the luminous landscape online will be our next class starting January 11th. So for those of you who would like to add a little color to your dreary winter months and hang out with all these cool folks, please do. My class for fall, I just submitted it. I meant to talk to you guys about it and see what you were interested in learning, but I went ahead and just did the same one that I did last year because we had so much fun. And it's painting, what is it? Painting clouds, trees, and water, or something like that. So that will be in the fall, and that is also going to be a lot about brush work and different edge qualities. So, you know, if you're interested in how to make different textures and different things like that, I like to say, you know, it's important to make our clouds feel like clouds and our rocks feel like rocks, or, you know, something soft and aloft versus grounded and heavy. So anyways, hopefully you guys will want to keep painting together. If not, I understand. Still love you. Have a great Thanksgiving, everybody. And
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yes.
enjoy, eat too much, and we'll see you guys next Wednesday, is I believe our final class. I can double check really quickly, but I believe that's true.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Wow. All right. Well, this has been a blast, you guys, and I look forward to seeing what ways you're challenging yourself and what images you chose and how you chose to go about making them. So see you guys in 7 days. Enjoy Thanksgiving.
Thank
Thank
you. Have a good
you.
holiday.
Have a
Hey,
good
everybody.
holiday. Bye-bye.
Bye.